What is up, everybody? This is Cedric. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're having a good day, night, depending on when you're watching this. Today I wanted to talk about servers, but before that, I did mention I have talked about this before, where I'm actually going for the camo grind here. I know I'm super late, but I just completed all the snipers, diamond and dark spine. Well, I think you need all weapon classes to be able to complete dark spine, but this AMR sniper, I hadn't completed it at all. I hadn't gotten gold on it or diamond, so I had to do that. Took me a little bit because, you know, it does take forever to aim down sight, but I completed that. I'm currently completing the knife because I did forget that you have this to complete, because it's now a dedicated slot here on the loadout. I forget that you could complete it, but you know, it is what it is. Next up, I'll be completing the dark spine for the pistols. I don't think it's gonna take that long. The snipers did take me a little longer than some other weapons, but nothing too crazy. It's just the last challenge for that, for dark matter, that's gonna be a little more difficult because you have to get 5 kills without dying. So it's gonna be a hell of a ride. The good thing is that you only need to complete that 3 times, so it should be a fairly quick task. Like I said, I wanted to talk about servers because I think I mentioned it on the previous video where I talked about the new season reloaded update, and servers are a little complicated. I don't know, I'm not really sure if you've noticed, probably you have, that sometimes you get a lot of like a high server latency or ping. Sometimes you might get packet burst. The way I understand packet burst is just that whenever you're playing, it's kind of losing connection to the server, so it makes it a little, it makes it laggy, right? Just like when you have a high ping, it just takes longer for things to reflect what you're doing. So essentially they're similar but not the same, right? So packet burst, it just means that the server's not getting all the information about your actions, and a high ping is just, it takes longer for your information, for the actions that you complete to be reflected on the server, right? And something that has also been a problem for years now, because I remember I talked about this on a really old video on a completely different channel like years ago. I think it was during the Advanced Warfare era when I talked about that on a video, which is kind of crazy because actually, let me check. It's crazy to think about because Advanced Warfare came out 10 years ago. That's a long time, dude. That's crazy. I hadn't really thought about that, but yeah, I talked about it because there's a thing that's called a tick rate for the servers. You don't have to be familiar with that because, you know, at the end of the day, just like me, you might still just play the game and not really pay that much attention to that. But the tick rate basically is how often the server is updated, right, with the information that it gets from the players. Depending on how high the tick rate is, then the faster it updates, right? From what I understand, I don't think there's any official information about this. Oh, he's reloading. I don't think there's any official information about this, but apparently we're on servers that have a 20 hertz tick rate, which means if it was, you can kind of see it as FPS or frames per second. So every second it updates 20 times, right? So any actions that you complete while on your screen, it may seem like you did it really quickly. For the server, it may take a little longer to update because it only updates 20 times a second. The higher that tick rate is, let's say 120, then the faster it's gonna update the action that you complete, right? Whether that's pulling the trigger, sliding, crouching, anything like that. That usually gives you a very poor experience, right? If you don't really pay attention to it, you won't notice. Plus, there's a lot of other stuff that's on top of that tick rate that's gonna cause connection issues, right? And it could be your connection, right? Maybe you're on Wi-Fi, maybe you're actually using an Ethernet cable, so it's a little faster for, you know, your system, whether that's a console or a PC, to update or send the information out to the server. But then the server also has other things on top of that, right? So let's say you don't have a bad connection, right? Your internet is pretty fast, but because your internet is really fast and the server is kind of slow at updating stuff, right, 20 times every second, then it doesn't matter if you send as much information as possible because the server is just gonna take us long to update anyway. When you really understand that kind of stuff, that's going behind the system, then it becomes a little more frustrating when you die, because at least the way I am, sometimes I make up a lot of excuses about dying in the game, because I don't want to be the reason I died, right? I'll blame someone else, whether that's someone accusing someone of being a cheater, lag, or just getting distracted by someone. I don't know, things like that, right? Now, every now and then I do accept my mistakes, and if I die because of an obvious mess up on my end, then I'll take the blame. Again, there's other stuff that's on top of the tick rate that's kind of not great, and then bad connection, which is the lag compensation that the servers have. I mentioned this in the previous video. I'm not like an IT guy or anything like that, but from being very active on social media where I can see stuff about the game. Okay, I got him. I've learned about that kind of stuff, right? And I'll do research as well, just to try and understand better, what I'm talking about, not just spew out words and make it sound confident enough so that people believe that what I'm saying is true. Good. Whoa. So lag compensation basically is, if someone has a bad connection, then the game is gonna want to make up for that bad connection, right? So the higher the ping you have, the more the game is gonna try and compensate for that for you, right? So say you take a shot here, and because you have a really high ping and the other person standing on this side, they moved before you took the shot, so essentially they dodged the bullet, but because of your high connection, the server is gonna say, oh, well, he took the shot, and while the other person did move, I need to make up for that. So because it looked to you like you did take the shot and it should have landed, then I'll give you the shot. And I don't know if that makes that much sense, but that's essentially how lag compensation works. It'll make up for the bad connection that you have. So the higher your ping is, the more it's gonna make up, right? In a way, it's a good thing, right? It's good that it's trying to make up for any bad connections, but it shouldn't come at the cost of the other player's experience, right? So if I have a really good connection, the server's not gonna make up for anything I do, and instead is gonna basically handicap me for the good connection. So sometimes, from what I've seen on like Reddit and stuff, is that the better connection that you have, the worse it can be for you, because the server's not gonna put any effort into sort of helping you, and instead it's just gonna make up for other people. Maybe you have noticed that sometimes you die around corners, right? So let's say I'm running this way, and then right as I make it across this, right, I pass this corner, that guy that's shooting at me is able to still kill me, and then you look at the kill cam and it looks like you didn't even make it past the corner. You didn't even make it past the corner, and it's frustrating, right? Because to you did make it, but the game for some reason decides that you didn't, and that that's because of the tick rate, right? So if we had a higher tick rate, then the game would have updated sooner. Let's go. You and I both are going out of this life. It's not just a tick rate thing, right? If you were to run past the corner, you might still die behind the corner because of lag compensation and things like that, right? So there's other stuff that will also affect it. But it all comes down to how good the coding is for the connection, right? Which is called the net code and all of that stuff. So there's a lot of stuff on the infrastructure that can affect your experience on the game. So if you notice, I'm supposed to have a 23 millisecond ping. According to that number, it takes 23 milliseconds. Essentially what that number tells us is that it takes 23 fractions of a second for the servers to receive any actions that I complete, right? So me running, in this case knifing, shooting, if I was shooting, anything that I do, it takes 23 milliseconds for the server to receive that information. Now, how long the server will take to update that or to reflect those actions will depend on how good the net coding is and the tick rate and lag compensation that also has to be taken into account. So if we had better servers, right, and of course a better coding for the servers, right, so just a better system overall, then we would definitely have a better experience. And that leads me into another problem that we have here, which is skill-based matchmaking. Now, I'm just against it as any other guy because sometimes you kind of just want to chill, not really have to think that much about what you're doing in the game. You don't want to be a tryhard. You kind of just want to sit back and relax and then just kind of shoot the shit or just kind of complete challenges, but not really have to like put in a lot of effort, because that can be tiring, right? And because of the skill-based matchmaking, the better you do, the harder matches is gonna put you in. Because of all that sort of matchmaking that it has to do, where it needs to put you in a lobby where there's more people that are kind of up to your skill or what it thinks that your skill is. And of course it takes into account other stuff, but let's just say that it's skill, right? Just for to keep it simple. So it's gonna try to find a match that's gonna have people that are at the same or around the same skill level that you're on, right? Maybe in your area there's not that many people that are good at the game, and because of that it's gonna try and find a different server, right? There's certain locations where they have servers, right? And it all comes down to, or it all depends on where you are. If you live close to a data center where they have servers, then you may have a better connection. But if you're really good, even though you're close to a server or a data center, you may still find yourself in matches or lobbies where the connection is awful, because it's having to find a match where people are on your skill level. That means that it's got to find a data center or server that's really far away from you, even though you're right next door to the data center, right? That also causes issues with connection, and that's where the server latency comes from and the packet bursting and things like that, because now the information that your system is sending out has to travel a lot further than if you were like right next to the data center, right? And by right next to the data center, I mean in the same city or on the same, in the same state, or maybe a state next to it. Let's say that you live in LA, right? There's a data center there, but because you're this crazy good player, it's gonna try and find a match with people with similar skill to you, and because of that, maybe the match is going to be hosted on servers in Washington State. I don't know how familiar you are with maps, but that's not really close. So that's going to create a higher server latency for you. So the latency, instead of being, let's say 10 ms or milliseconds, now it's going to be 70 or 100 or higher than that. I'm not really sure what the latency would be in that case, but it would definitely be higher. So that's just going to make you feel like it's taking too long for your shot to register. You're dying around corners a lot, and it's just gonna give you a bad experience, right? And then take into account how long it takes for the servers to update. Now, the servers might compensate a lot more for you, so you might even have a better experience because of that, or you may not, because you're with really good players, and then it becomes more of a skill thing rather than a connection thing. But because your information is taking too long to update, then it's just gonna be a bad experience. Skill-based matchmaking also causes issues there for you. The server infrastructure is not great, then it's just that was kind of messed up to do. Again, it could all be better if we had better servers. So even if you have to be on a match that's hosted in on a data center that's really far away, then the experience would just be overall better, and you wouldn't have to really worry about, oh, is this because I'm a bad player? Is this because it's a bad connection, or what is going on, right? And then that also causes another issue. So it's kind of a snowball effect there. Server infrastructure is not great. Skill-based matchmaking is also causing or making you have to connect to matches that are farther away from you. There's also the issue of those data centers where they're located, right? There's certain areas in the US where there's no server data centers, right? So if you live in one of those areas where the data centers are really far away from you, then you're always going to have a bad connection. Now, I can understand if you don't have, as a business, if you don't have that many consumers in a certain area, then maybe having data centers near there it's not as beneficial to you as a business, but it's a different discussion, right? Just consumer experience, not having data centers near you, it will make everything really difficult for you, right? the servers may compensate, but if you have a really high ping, then it's not gonna really that much of a difference, right? If you have a 300 ms for a ping, even if the server compensates, it's still gonna be 300 milliseconds, right? That also becomes another I don't know why he tried to hit me. That also becomes an issue because, again, it's a snowball effect. You have bad server infrastructure, then you have skill-based matchmaking putting you in lobbies that are hosted really far away from you, and then you have data centers that are really far away, then it all just becomes an even worse experience, right? It gets me thinking, Call of Duty generates a lot of revenue for Activision and now Microsoft. Why does it take them so long to just get better servers? Because it's not like whatever data centers they're using, it's not like they only have 20 hertz servers there. I'm sure they have better options that they can just upgrade to. Now, it does take time to update, right? Because you have to migrate everything. I mean, it's been years since we've had the same servers. I mean, it took them forever to just get dedicated servers, because it used to be peer-to-peer, so someone in the match would have to be hosting the match for everyone. So that would also create issues, right? But it would be because skill-based matchmaking wasn't as big as it is now. Back then, you would always have a better connection, right? Because it would connect you to people close to you instead of trying to find you a match with people on your skill level. So there's the Microsoft side of things, where they have their own server hosting thing or service, right? So if you pay them, they can host anything for you on their servers, Azure or Azure, however you want to pronounce that. It gets me thinking, why does it take them so long? Because now it's not like they have to pay someone for that. Of course, there's a cost to it, right? And that's probably the reason they don't do it, because of the high cost. Having better service is just gonna cost them more, and it's probably just easier to keep everything the same, because the majority of the player base is not gonna really notice the difference, right? Now they don't really have to pay someone else for that, so in a way it'll be cheaper because they're hosting their own servers and now they're better, right? Again, me complaining about that or talking about server quality, it's not really gonna change that much. It's not like someone in Activision is sitting there waiting for my videos where I talk about this kind of stuff and thinking, oh, he talked about it, let's fix it. But it does open up room for that conversation to happen, at least within the community, right? So the more people that know about this kind of stuff, the better. They might then notice that there's more people talking about it, not just some random guy sitting there in his room. Yeah, it's a very interesting conversation. I'm not really sure if you were familiar with the server latency stuff and the server infrastructure that they currently have, but I would like to know, what do you think? Do you think it does make a difference if we get better servers? You think it doesn't really affect that much as far as field goes, because it technically does affect, but maybe you don't really notice it. Maybe you don't notice something negative about it, and I would like to know. That's all I have for today, but thank you so much for watching. I do hope that you take care of yourself, that you drink some water, that you tell your mom you love her, and I'll see you in the next video.